This is a special presentation of Farm Journal Television.
You're watching Corn College TV. I'm Clinton Griffiths, and here's what's coming up on today's show. Deciding on which genetics to plant can be a tough decision. Agronomist Ken Ferry shows us the difference between flex and fixed ear hybrids. Later, head to the field for a lesson on crown root development. These little lines are responsible for yield, and changing row spacing is all the rage. But does it really make a difference? Find out in today's Agronomics of Equipment, coming up on Corn College TV.
Welcome to Corn College TV with Field Agronomist Ken Ferry, Associate Field Agronomist Missy Bauer, Farm Journal's Margie Fisher, and host Clinton Griffiths.
Hello there. Glad you could find a seat for today's show. We're starting today at the beginning, at the first important decision, the seed. With so many varieties and hybrids to choose from, seed selection can be overwhelming. Should it be stacked with traits, fixed or flexed ear? And what does that mean for management? I recently caught up with Ken Ferry for a lesson of my own. It's today's systems approach. Ken, it's a big decision every year to decide what type of genetics you want to go with. How do you start?
That's an excellent question and a big one for most growers, because we realize as we look at yield maps, variety selection is probably number one as far as making the biggest difference in yield. And I encourage my growers to actually look for the weakness in the hybrid. A lot of times the literature and what you hear about in the promotion of different hybrids is their pluses or their strengths, and that's good, but as a manager we need to know their weaknesses of that hybrid and see if we can manage around the weaknesses of it in how we position that hybrid out there. So that's probably more important to go after, to look for, than the actual overall what we consider the best parts of the trait.
Sure. The hardest part, I guess, would be finding out that information. Where do you go to look for that?
That's another good question, because a lot of times from a company standpoint, they tend to promote the strengths of a hybrid and not so much the weaknesses, or not focus as much on the weaknesses. It comes from a lot of asking a lot of questions at the coffee shop, what other farmers are planting, what they liked or didn't like. Probably the best way to do it is in a variety plot yourself, where you go out there and actually see firsthand what you think the weaknesses are in that hybrid. And some of the plant breeders and some of the good seedsmen will come right out and tell you what they think the weaknesses are, and you got to give them credit for that.
Again, this looks interesting. Tell us what you're doing with this plot here.
This particular plot, we're looking at 4 different genetics, and those genetics are split into 2 types, what we call a flex hybrid and a fixed hybrid, meaning a flexed-eared hybrid tends to flex out for population or flex down, and a fixed hybrid, which has a more determinate ear, doesn't change much. And what we're actually studying in this plot is how nitrogen rates and population affect these different genetics. This particular grower wants to use variable rate planting, so he wants to go in there and change population by zones, and he wants to change nitrogen by zones. So we're trying to learn these hybrids to see what's it take, not only population-wise, but nitrogen-wise.
Right, and it's pretty telltale, right? I mean, what you came back with?
Correct. The 2 ears here in the center are what the grower typically would plant. In this case, he would plant at 34,000 with this nitrogen rate. As he moves to variable rate, he wants to take populations up and down and change nitrogen rates. So this down here represents, we're moving from 34,000 to 36,000 at the grower's nitrogen rate. And then we take it down 60 pounds and we move it up 60 pounds. So we change the nitrogen rate out here to see what effect it would have on these ears themselves. So this is a determinate rate, and changing from a determinate hybrid, changing from 34 to 36,000, we didn't really change the ear size that much.
Right.
We're over here in the flex scenario, we flex them down a little bit. They change in size. But what's probably more important is when we look at the nitrogen side, when we go up in nitrogen rate, this flex hybrid tends to flex the ear up quite a bit.
Oh, sure.
So a situation where saying that this hybrid maybe needs nitrogen a little bit more than this, meaning as we flex the nitrogen up on the fixed rate, we didn't change the ears as much over here.
Right.
Having not enough nitrogen on, no matter what we did, looks like it's going to be a pretty stiff penalty. So trying to figure out what to do. And in our past studies here in Central Illinois, we've seen a trend to that as well, meaning the flex hybrids are a little bit more sensitive to making sure you got enough nitrogen on it when you raise the population.
Right.
So it's not just as simple as raising the population in the field and coming out with it. So, but it takes a plot like this on the farmer's own ground to really get a feel for it. You're kind of setting yourself up the first steps of figuring out, how can I variable rate this farm? What's going to be the best option when we try to pick a population or a nitrogen rate for it?
When Corn College TV continues, evaluating the lifeline of your corn plants, we're checking crown root development when Corn College TV returns.
Corn College TV is brought to you by DeKalb. For all season strong performance and results you can take to the bin. Go with DeKalb.
Go with the brand that gets results with strong roots and strong stalks for performance you can take to the bin. Go with industry-leading DeKalb genetics and proven Genuity trait technology, letting you get more from every acre. Go all season strong. Go with DeKalb.
Hello folks, this is Mark Gold with Top Third Ag Marketing. If you need help marketing your grains or livestock, give us a call. We offer one-on-one relationships that can protect you without the threat of margin calls. We don't speculate, we manage risk. If you're tired of paying acreage and management fees for marketing advice that hasn't actually helped your bottom line, then give us a call.
Call today to get 2 weeks of Mark's private grain marketing email. Top Third Ag Marketing, earning the trust of American farmers every day.
America needs to know that something still works in this country. One of those things that is working well is agriculture. And at U.S. Farm Report, what's crucial to me is to make sure we convey the confident, competent voice that I hear from America's farmers and rural residents, that they can count on us. Rural America works. Agriculture works.
Watch U.S. Farm Report Saturday morning and Sunday afternoons on RFD TV. U.S. Farm Report, the spirit of the countryside.
Mark your calendar. Ag Connect Expo 2011 is coming to Atlanta, Georgia on January 7th through the 10th. Connect with experts.
Learn new ideas, new technology.
Connect to the future of agriculture, the newest innovations. Connect globally with producers from around the world.
This show sets itself apart from the regional shows.
Ag Connect Expo 2011, where the world of agriculture comes together.
Lush green leaves, picket fence stands, and photocopied plants, row after row after row. Sounds like a corn farmer's dream, doesn't it? You bet it does. But creating that oasis of perfection takes a manager who knows what they see above ground is a result of what is going on below. And if you ask Missy Bauer, above ground beauty is a result of below ground rooting.
When we try to identify the root systems and really what's happening down there, we want to head out with our shovel and dig up some plants. You know, and a lot of times people go ahead and they look at a root ball and it's hard to say, you know, what's really going on with this thing.
Right.
So the first thing I like to do is try to get it cleaned up. Okay. So we got to get all this extra soil off here. And one of the easy ways of doing that is kind of tapping on it a little bit. Then after we do that, we actually want to go ahead and trim off those brace roots, because these brace roots are really anchoring a lot of soil for us right now, but the brace roots aren't very important as far as yield goes. I mean, they're going to help this plant stand up, but they're not going to be the yielding power or capability of this plant. So we kind of want to get things cleaned off like that.
And then here's one that you cleaned just a little bit ago.
Yeah, once we've got them cleaned off, we want to try to start identifying what we call these crown roots. So what I always do to try to identify them is look in here and try to find where the actual old seed was, and you can see a little bit of a bump here. This was the old seed. It's attached to what we call the mesocotyl there. I snap that out. That mesocotyl attached at the base of the crown. So I snap that right there. We get that out of our way, and of course that's how we measure planting depth, which is what we can do with that. But when we look in here now at the base of this crown, it's the first set of roots that come out after where that mesocotyl attaches, what we'd call our first set. So right here's one of our first sets. There'll be about 4 of those going all the way around here. Then this next root here is what we'd call our second set. So he came out after this first set. He's a little bit thicker in diameter, and then you can see the third set that it came out, and again a little bit thicker. So these are coming out as the plant grows. So That's why we'll see that they're thicker in diameter. Right. When we look at these crown roots, we've got to know that that first, second, third set of crown roots are the yield power of this plant. So they're going to take up the majority of the water and nutrients for this plant, especially these thirds. When we get into July and August, we want these guys being our big water line. So as you mentioned, we want to analyze, what are these first 3 sets doing? And when we look at this root ball, it looks pretty good overall. These roots should be growing down at about a 35 to 40 degree angle with nothing impeding them. So this side of the plant, we look like we're doing pretty good. We can see over here, this is a number 3 that has turned just a little bit. And you notice it comes down, instead of growing straight, he's got this bend. So it hit some sort of a density layer in this soil and turned until it could find a spot to get down. We can see it with this root as well. Okay. So we've got a couple of them turning here, but nothing dramatic. The majority of these roots are going down just like they should at that 35 to 40 degree angle. So overall, I would rate this root system pretty good.
In today's Ask an Agronomist question, a viewer wants to know, is there a way to estimate my yield per acre before beginning harvest?
If you want to go out and do some estimating for your corn yields prior to harvest, you're going to go out and measure out your thousandths of an acre, of course, so we can get our ear count. Okay, that's going to be the foundation. So the formula that we're going to use is we're going to count the number of ears per acre that we have out there, and then we're going to do some kernel counts on there as well. So we're going to take the number of rows around times the number of kernels long with that ear count, and then divide that by 90. So that's going to be the formula that we use to do this. So in this situation, we've actually counted, our ear count out here is 32,000. And then what we would do is pull 3 to 5 different ears randomly throughout here that we would pull off to actually do these kernel counts on. So in this case here, I'll grab an ear to do kernel counts. We're going to count the number of rows around. And I have 16, so I'm 16 rows around, and then I'm going to count the number of kernels long. And this is where it gets to be a little bit more challenging. You got to decide where you're going to start and stop on the butt and on the tip of the ear. So we'll usually start in on the butt about 2 rows up, just so we know we've got good rows around at that point. And then we're going to go ahead and we'll actually count these up. When we get up to the top, we're usually going to back off a couple of rows as well. So we're not going to count all the way up because we don't have good complete rows around up there. So we're going to stop in this case about right here, and this is actually 40 long. So we have 16 around by 40 long, and we have the 32 ears out here. So we'd take our calculator and go ahead and multiply those numbers together. And then we're going to divide that by 90. And that's going to give us an estimated yield per acre, in this case, of 227 bushels per acre. So that's what the estimated yield from here would be. The one thing this does not take into consideration is kernel fill or depth. So you have to make a judgment call there. Has it been really good conditions for kernel fill? If so, maybe we can add 10% to those yields. If it's been poor fill conditions, and maybe we need to take off 10 or 15% from those estimated yields.
Still to come on Corn College TV, technology is providing producers with piles of paperwork. After the break, we talk about keeping up with the keeping of records, coming up on Corn College TV.
Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer is designed to increase your fertilizer efficiency and can boost your yield potential by 10 to 15%. How do we know? Well, first we tested Avail in a series of university trials, then across different states, different counties, different fields and farms just like yours to prove that Avail will keep phosphorus available for the entire growing season. Avail has been proven around the world, and that's good news for your crop as well as your wallet. So visit chooseavail.com and see where Avail takes you.
Rust is destroying your valuable equipment and property. Rust Guy permanently stops rust the easy way. No scraping, grinding, or sandblasting. Brush, spray, or roll Rust Guy onto any rusted metal and it will not rust again. Rust Guy is not a paint, but an industrial strength formula that kills rust on contact. It leaves a smooth finish that can be left as is or painted. Rust Guy protects from salt, manure, fertilizer, urine, and rain. Call 888-RUST-GUY to talk to a rust expert. That's 888-RUST-GUY or go to rustguy.com. Confusion, doubt, fear, forces that drive the markets in unpredictable ways. It would be nice to find a voice you trust, a broker with an impeccable compliance record, someone with global contacts and expertise. a sought-after speaker who simply tells it like it is. All that with 30 years of experience navigating these markets. Someone like that would be quite a find. Bauer Trading. Experience at work for you.
I'm Greg Vincent, the editor of AgWeb, and welcome to our new site. This marks the end of many long months by a lot of us here at Farm Journal Media, and also even some of our loyal readers who were dedicated to helping us remain the homepage of agriculture. This new site is designed to have more vibrant content, easier navigation, and faster load times while still delivering the same quality information that you've come to expect from AgWeb over the past 10 years. So go ahead and take a look around the site and let us know what you think.
AgWeb, the homepage of agriculture.
Missy, with all the information that's available to producers today, there's got to be a boatload of things that are coming in every harvest, every season. Keeping track of that has got to be a good idea.
That's right. Agronomic record keeping is a big challenge for farmers out there today, but it's very, very important. We can go through a couple examples of how important things can be and just simple things. I want to use this example. This is from a corn-on-corn grower,
okay,
and not paying attention to where his hybrids were the previous year. So on the bottom here, it shows the previous year which hybrids were planted in these different strips.
Right.
Okay. So you have A, B, C, another version of B, and then a D. The current year, then, he planted the entire field to variety B. Okay,
yeah.
And now we want to see what happens when I stack two hybrids in corn on top of one another the next year. We could say we had B here the previous year, and the same one again, it's 219. But when I changed and put different genetics on top of it, now I'm at 231.
Right.
And that thing repeated here where I had that B again, and on top of it again the same year, 214. So between 10 to 15 bushel difference by planting the wrong hybrid on top of one another. If we take a look at this next map, and this is just a map that came out of a monitor that we already have in the planting tractor, and it's mapping the different hybrids. So hybrid A here has all these different traits that we're looking at, and it has a trait that blocks the western bean cutworm damage.
Right.
Okay? Hybrid B does not have that trait.
Sure.
So if I'm going to go out and scout because we heard there's a potential threat for western bean cutworm, where am I going to spend my time scouting? Make sure we're in this hybrid and not this hybrid.
Right.
So we've got to understand that part of it can really improve our efficiencies when it comes to scouting. Some of the tools we probably already have at our fingertips, and maybe we forget about what it's all collecting, but our planting monitor is one. And these planting monitors are collecting a lot of information, things like the hybrids, as well as populations, but on some of these newer monitors, if we take a look here, are actually recording things like down pressure or downforce.
Okay, but it doesn't always have to be high tech. I mean, some of it, there are other ways that we can do keep track of this information.
That's right. You know, some of the things are just as simple as, you know, a grower using a notepad, okay? Yeah. You know, and I've had a lot of growers that I've asked him questions and he's never not been able to answer one because he does have that with him. So it can be simple, but it can also be higher tech. We have a lot of growers that are using these handheld computers or PDAs in their tractors, or even some laptops. When they're running auto steer, they seem to have a lot more time to do some of this record keeping in there. And of course, at the end of the season, we have our yield maps. If we take a look at the last map that we have here, these yield maps are another piece of information that we are collecting to help bring that all together at the end.
Yeah, but end of the day, do it. That's the most important thing that we can say, is make sure you're doing it somehow.
That's right, and have your whole team involved. You know, this team approach, if you got one guy collecting data and not somebody else keeping track of the records, it's not going to get you to your final goal. Everybody in the farm needs to be involved in the record-keeping side of it.
Row spacing isn't just a set-it-and-forget-it endeavor. In today's farming world, Ken Ferry discusses your row spacing options, coming up on Corn College TV.
The brand that gets results, with strong roots and strong stocks for performance you can take to the bin. Go with industry-leading DeKalb genetics and proven Genuity trait technology, letting you get more from every acre. Go all season strong. Go with DeKalb.
Growing up in agriculture, I know how important information is to America's farmers and ranchers. they have the tremendous responsibility of feeding this great nation. Here at Ag Day, we're here to help with the latest in agriculture news, agribusiness with Al Pell, the big picture on weather with Mike Hoffman, and stories about the country way of life. Join me each morning for Ag Day, the country experience.
Hi, Carrie Gottschall here with the perfect solution to your storage problem. A stylish garage or shop right in your own backyard. US Buildings offers you revolutionary designs that are strong, durable, easy to set up, attractive, and affordable. Why have a cluttered garage when you can have plenty of neatly organized workspace?
US Buildings put me in my new shop in no time. Their high-quality steel structure is American-made. It's even hurricane-rated. Now, I can work on my antique cars right in my own backyard.
Their innovative designs require no internal support, which means you get 100% usable space.
I feel like my home is twice as large because I finally have all the storage space I need. Now all my keepsakes are here at home and not stored in a rental unit across town.
No wonder thousands of Americans are using US Buildings. You should too. Call US Buildings right now. Our service representatives are waiting to answer your questions. Build it yourself and save.
Ken, as farmers look to increase yields, many are looking to increase plant densities with upping populations and narrowing row spacing. What should farmers keep in mind as they're looking to move toward narrow rows?
We would move clients towards narrow rows in a couple different situations. One may be just water management, trying to close the rows up quicker to harvest more usable water in the stand itself. The other scenario, which most likely here in Illinois, is we're trying to push those plant stands, as you're saying, and some of the newer genetics are demanding for higher populations. And there's going to be a kind of a bell curve where we hit the upper end of our plant densities in a wide row. And for instance here, it seems to be in that 36,000 range. Trying to push above that, it's harder to keep a wide row, if we call a 30-inch row a wide row, keep it climbing compared to a 20-inch or in this case a twin row as this corn right here. So moving plant densities up, and if we're going to go higher, if we're going to move up into the 40,000 plus range, it's most likely probably going to have to come in a narrow row configuration.
Now in the Farm Journal test plots, you have more than a decade of experience in narrow row corn. What have you seen?
Well, in yield response, we would say our plots are in the 7 to 10 bushel, meaning if I had the same plant population, the same ear count, as I would in a wide row configuration, we're seeing about 7 to 10 bushel yield response. Now 7 to 10 bushel doesn't buy a lot of machinery, so it kind of depends on the person's perspective of where he is in his farming operation, as far as how many acres and that type of thing, as far as just how much of an equipment change he wants to make. Does he want to change the combine, the sprayer, the side dressing equipment, and the corn planter, or does he want to maybe take a cheaper route and just change the corn planter and stay still on 30-inch centers? But you know, I think 7 to 10 bushel is a good number to use, and you set your budgeting towards that. I think you're going to be all right. We haven't been able to see a difference between a 20-inch row and a twin row situation. They seem to both be in that 7 to 10 bushel over our 30-inch rows when we do it in our plots.
And you mentioned machinery. Now, during some seasons, farmers are going to have to head to the field with a little bit different configurations. What field experience have you had with that?
Well, from the planter's perspective, it's usually fairly simple. From the farmer's perspective, it's usually fairly simple. They're just changing the corn planter, maybe the head. Now, if they're getting the field custom sprayed, then it's a little bit different, meaning that they're going to make sure their custom applicator can match up to their rows. And if they're going to come in and side dress, when we narrow up those rows, it narrows up the window that they can get the side dressing done in. So they have to speed that process up a little bit. They may have to have a bigger side dress bar, but they can't just eliminate it. If side dressing nitrogen was part of their system and they make a row change, they can't just take side dress nitrogen out of the picture, because they may go backwards more than they go forward. That goes for starter fertilizer. If starter fertilizer is part of their program now, it has to follow through into their management practices when they narrow up the rows.
Now, Ken, moving to narrow rows also includes some additional management perspective throughout the season, correct?
Mainly the difference is going to be in scouting. The insects, there's going to be some different issues there. Mainly we would worry about aphids and corn borer, stuff that's attracted to the narrow row corn, which tends to be slightly taller in the rapid growth period. And probably the big one is disease. As we can see looking down through these narrow rows, I can't see out to the alley on the other end. They're so tight. That's good for managing water, keeping it in the field, but it's also good for creating a disease environment that you have to manage. And you're going to manage that with hybrid selection and scouting and spraying of a fungicide. So he has to be a disease manager when he creates a canopy that's more conducive for disease.
Thanks, Ken. So there you have it, another day's lesson in corn. We're putting this in every episode of Corn College TV on our website. It's an easy way to keep up with the show and allows you to rewatch anything that piques your interest. Thanks for watching. Class dismissed. Next time on Corn College TV, we're managing diseases. Learn how the experts think through their production practices and how it relates to disease management, and using your planter and management zones to adjust the number of seeds hitting the soil. Learn the latest on variable rate planting next time on Corn College TV.
Corn College TV is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Television.